Hey guys, thanks for checking out the video, and please like, subscribe, and share the video. And if you want to, in the description below, there is a donation link for me to get better stuff in the future so I can provide better content for you guys. That's enough of me wasting your time. Thanks for watching the video. Alright, so I accidentally did like a few games. So you can retreat before you lose, but if it gets to the point where your ship almost is dying, you can't actually retreat anymore. So I did use all my attempts to kind of limit test what I can do here. A few things to mention for the boss on both bosses from what I've seen. Mechanic wise, basically there's around 3 phases, and in between those phases the boss starts walking towards your base, one interval at a time, where he starts from his position to the middle to your ship. So there's a few things here to mention about this boss, and so far I've been using a different squad. I've been using Kyle, Kim Sobin, Shinjia, Rosaria, Chifuyu, Gaiyun, Suyun, and Hilda. Now, the reason why I lost early on instead of actually being able to clear it is because I actually over DPS checked it. So if you there are certain points of the boss's HP bars where if you over DPS check it, it will fire a big laser beam that will basically wipe your whole team, and you basically don't want that. So there's basically like 2 to 3 ways you can kill this boss. So if you have way more DPS than me, you can kill it before it even reaches phase 2. So you save your ultimates. You basically don't do anything for the first DPS check because you have enough units to actually DPS check it without your ship skill and your ultimates. And then once that damage check is cleared, you can basically the boss starts walking towards the middle for phase 2. So 1.5 phase is basically walking towards the middle, and at that point you can actually spam your ultimates to the point where it will basically shred the boss as soon as it gets to the middle point of the map, and you just win at that point. Now, that's one way of doing it, and that's if you have a shit ton of T6 gear and you're actually geared to shit and you're good. Now, the second way of killing it is probably the one I'm going to go for, but it's kind of hard for me because I actually over DPS check it. So, I'm going to go over the phases real quick. So, for all phases, basically, you need a target in front of the enemy at melee range. Melee range is kind of a little bit ranged. It's like Gaiyun auto attack range, basically. When you're in Gaiyun auto attack range, a little bit less than that, it is basically melee range, and it recognizes that the target is there and he will start attacking, and that's when the check disappears. If there is no check for 8 seconds, or if there's a check for 8 seconds without a target in front of you, the laser beam comes off and you will be wiped. Now, in phase 1, the boss will stay at the end of the map, dealing damage to targets in melee range, and uses the special skills as it comes. The special skill just does like a ground pound, and it has enough range to hit the rangers, but it's not that important to be honest. It shouldn't kill your units. But the big thing is that at 225, the boss will use some sort of debuff on the field. Usually it's like a skill seal debuff, but it doesn't really matter since you're not really going to use your ultimates, because you should have your ultimates charged by now. The biggest thing is that at 218, the boss would trigger a damage check. If failed, it will wipe your team. It will shoot the strong laser beam. This should be pretty easy to clear. You should have enough units to do it without the ship skill and the ultimates. Now, phase 1.5, it just starts walking towards the middle of the map. During this phase, it does not require a target in the front and will not use any skills. And it will not trigger a beam if you drop it to 1/3 of the HP bar during this phase. Meaning, if you can get it to 1/3 of the HP bar while it's walking, you basically win. There's no way the boss will actually kill you at that point. That's the first way of winning. Now, the second way of winning, if you can't do it, this is where it matters the most. The boss will stay in the middle of the map, still requires a melee target in front. If you succeeded the damage check in phase 1, most of your units should be behind it. So you will likely need to deploy summon targets in front of the boss. At 150, boss will trigger ultimate skill. The ultimate skill does a shit ton of damage to enemies around it, and will likely bring your enemies behind it forward. Most of the time it will just kill you. But at this point, I think for my strategy, I want it to kill my units. Not necessarily I want it, but I'm gonna let it do it. Because for me, I hit it to 1/3 of its HP bar before 130. So you can either use your ultimate skill to iframe through the ultimate of the enemy boss, but you gotta make sure that it's not gonna exceed 1/3 of its HP bar. So it's kind of iffy for me, but basically if at 130 the boss will trigger a second damage check. If failed, it fires, the strong beam that will wipe your team. And then it moves on to the next phase, which is the phase 3 of the boss walking towards your ship. But honestly, that part really doesn't matter because you should be able to kill at that point. Your team shouldn't die as much. But the biggest thing is if you drop the boss's HP bar before the second damage check at 130, your team will just straight up get wiped by that strong beam, and it walks through your ship and it goes into lethal mode, which the boss will just start fucking firing its lasers and chipping down your ship in like a few seconds. So the second method of winning that I've figured out is basically if you don't do enough damage with your team comp, then you can use your ultimate skill to iframe the 150 damage check, or not the damage check, but 150 ultimate skill, because it naturally comes to that point. But if you do enough damage, you might just want your units to die, and that's fine. Redeploy your units after the ultimate skill. Try and hit it at the point at 130, and not have it hit 1/3 HP bar. So at 130, it'll have a damage check. You want to clear that damage check without hitting that 1/3 HP bar. After that, it should be easy as hell to just clear the fight, to be honest. At like near 102, 110, or 110 seconds. That's around 11.2k points. So it's pretty... It's a very narrow, a very small time frame of doing all this stuff. So I would honestly try and show you guys the bosses, like how they play and stuff, but you guys probably already have seen what it does. But yeah, I have no entries left, sadly. But on Sunday, I will try and get some videos out for you guys so you guys can see me clearing these bosses. Hopefully at that point I've already perfected how I want to do my boss run. But yeah, that's pretty much it.